Welcome to Fill the Void podcast, where we discuss unhealthy human habits caused by the society of consumption. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of our podcast, where we delve into the world of sex, our physical bodies, and behaviors. Today, we have the honor of hosting Olivia, a successful intuitive sex coach. She explains how transforming one's perspective from seeing sex as a physical manner to a spiritual one can change the whole sexual experience. Olivia offers advice to individuals and couples, aiming to bridge the gap between sex, self-worth, and emotional void. Well, hi Olivia, how's it going? Thank you so much for taking your time and being in this episode of Fill the Void. I'm so excited to talk to you. Olivia is an intuitive sex coach and her business is called Be Successful. How are
Yeah,
you, Olivia?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having
Amazing.
me. Yeah.
So, can you start by sharing your personal journey and struggles that led you to become a sex coach? And as you mentioned in your post, what inspired you to pursue this path?
Yeah, 100%. So, really, I was on this journey of finding love, but not ever able to find it, right? So, I was
Yeah,
always seeking externally for this love that I knew existed, that I knew was possible. And to be honest, I struggled a lot intimately with partners specifically that I had feelings for. So oftentimes when I developed feelings for someone, I thought emotions were the missing piece, but actually sometimes the emotions, it was what caused kind of the disconnect between me, my body, my mind, etc. So I always like to say like I struggled with orgasming with my partners and it led me on this path of understanding, why is this an issue? Why is it that solo? No problem. But once I introduce a person into the mix, things start to shift or things don't work, as I like to say.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh, interesting.
yeah. And then also, too, during the pandemic, I really saw that like the real pandemic is the disconnection we're experiencing. And specifically when it comes to dating and how we date, how we interact, like the fact that one night stands can exist where you literally don't even know each other's name. It's like, whoa, okay. There's a time and place for everything. And of course, everything is a learning experience, but I knew there had to be something more to sexual experiences, to dating, to love, etc.
Exactly. So interesting. And I bet like a lot of people can resonate with everything that happened to you. And like in this question is about like many people turning to sex and or flirting or dating as a way to cope with their emotional struggles,
Oh,
also as an escape to their
mhm,
emotions.
100%.
Can you share like insights on how many people or how people oftenly use sex in this way as an
Yeah.
escape, like from your coaches or
Yeah.
clients?
So I'll definitely share a little bit about me as well,
Yes,
because I feel
yes.
like I also was using maybe it was like sex or finding a relationship to escape from doing my actual self work, right? Like I thought that if I could just find this person that would love me, that I would feel complete, right? That I would feel whole, that I would feel worthy. And in the end, it was like relationship after relationship or experience that really it wasn't building me up, actually was leaving me feeling like so unworthy. Like one bad experience, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like nobody loves me, nobody's ever gonna love me. So I definitely was getting what I call like ego hits from like,
Yeah,
sure, maybe I would meet this person. The first 3 days, I would be like, we would be obsessed with each other. We would be living this like fantasy. And then reality hits, a few weeks later, and you're like,
exactly.
oh my gosh, like you're not even compatible. So I was like, why does this keep happening to me? Why do I keep going into this fantasy, into this almost like in a way, it's a little delulu, as people like to say. It's a little bit of a delusion because it's like this hope and this dream that pulls you in. But when you start to take a look at, like, okay, wait a minute, what am I trying to escape? As you mentioned, what is it really here that I'm not taking a look at, that I'm just putting a band aid over? Right. So that's like one experience. And for sure, what I see oftentimes, even with my clients and just, within, we could say Miami, because that is my experience of the dating scene in Miami, there is a lot of it's such a fast-paced environment, right? So a lot of what it is, it's like you're meeting people left and right, but you're not really taking the time to really get to know someone to the level of depth, that's
Yeah,
possible. And to be honest, oftentimes it's because like we're afraid, it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel safe to really be vulnerable.
exactly.
And yeah, that's the big thing. So like, yeah, sure, we'll make out with this person, we'll sleep with this person this night, and it's good for like a short-term hit. But when it comes to really like looking at yourself in the mirror, oftentimes you're like, what am I doing? Like at the end of the day, this isn't what I want. So why do I keep going to this pattern? Right.
Exactly. And like what are the things we should do, or what are the signals we should start taking, being aware of, to say this is what I want, or this is make this I'm going in depth with this person. Like,
Yeah. So oftentimes I feel it's like the clarity of what you desire. It is so important to really do your own soul searching of what do you really want? Like,
yeah,
not what your
that's the
parents
key.
told you, not what society or culture has told you, like, what is true for you? And there's so many different types of relationships out there. And a lot of like, maybe what may seem taboo, you need to see what fits for you, right? Or what feels right to you. So in the beginning stages, I always say explore and get clear and even be honest. The more you can be honest with people and really letting them know, hey, I may not know what I want, but this is what I'm exploring, right? Like
Exactly.
even being that transparent with someone, it prepares, like, it changes the whole experience of dating or of meeting people or getting to know someone. So for sure.
And also, yeah, and what you're saying also, it requires communication skills
Oh,
in
yeah.
this case.
Communication, yeah.
Because
It's like, I wanted to really be a sex coach and help people have this amazing sex life, and I'm like, "We're not even communicating." So, we need to take a few steps back before we even get into this, like, sex magic stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what are your techniques into these sex coaching
Yeah.
things?
So really my passion is the workshop that I do, which is a form of sex magic breath work, you can call it, right? It's a tantric experience where you learn how to reconnect with your sexual energy. But really it's probably not what you expect. It's literally just your life force energy. It's the energy that's running through your body constantly, but learning how to move it through each chakra and really move it through each energy center so that you can have more awareness, that you can release any stuck emotions, any suppressed experiences, so that you can be more open and more expressive, right? So, oftentimes it's just us taking the time to breathe into our body, to really sit with our feelings, sit with what's coming up in a way, and also being gentle with yourself, right?
That's the
So
key.
that's something that I like. I love. This is the workshop that I do in Miami once a month, and it's great for singles as well as couples. So the singles, I always say too, like Tantra is for singles just as much as it is for couples. And especially like as you're single, like this is a great technique to really get in touch with your body and like what does
Exactly.
energetic pleasure feel like, right? What does me learning what my body likes and releasing shame, releasing guilt, things that maybe have kept me small, because of childhood experiences or belief systems you picked up. So it's a huge
Exactly.
thing, but happy to go
Yeah.
into anything specific that you want.
Yeah, no, no, I love exposing all of these things, because the truth is that, like, people sometimes feel even ashamed of
Oh,
bringing these topics up, right? And we should always be talking about this, because we all experience the same things, and
100%.
it's like normal. It's
Yeah.
same with problems of any kind. People feel ashamed of even talking problems out loud. So, from your personal experience and using sex as a coping mechanism, how
Mhm.
did you eventually found healthier ways to cope with your emotions? It was
Yeah.
like
So
a click you made, or it was like a process of many years?
yeah. So I would say like the biggest shift for me was when I had this beautiful experience of because I struggled with turn on with partners and I was always thinking that if I found the right partner, everything would change.
Yeah,
So I was putting all of this like subconscious pressure in a way in my partnerships. And even though maybe they didn't know, but they were feeling something, right? And I had this beautiful experience where I was doing a meditation and almost like I was called to like start breathing into my body, start holding my breath. And I had this beautiful experience where I was able to feel my energetic turn on and realize like, holy crap, like it was never about the other person. It was always about me. And how do I create the safety so that my body can express how it wants to express, right? Without the judgment, without the criticism.
Exactly.
So that was a huge
Exactly.
shift of like just really taking the focus back on me and taking ownership of my pleasure, right? Because otherwise, of course, I was always feeling disempowered because I was always saying, well, it's their fault. They're not doing it. So how was I ever going to step into my power if I was always blaming someone
That's
else? Right?
so important. That's so important. Like
Yeah.
shifting the perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Massive. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's common for people to tie their self-worth to their sexual
Oh,
experiences
totally.
or
Yeah.
attractiveness. And like, how does this connection affect individuals? And what can be done to break this association for the people that are going through this?
Yeah, totally. So I always encourage people to be intentional in any intimate experience. I don't have any judgment, like whether you know someone for a few hours or a few years. Like the key here is the more, intentional and honest you can be about the experience. Like maybe you just want to play and have fun, but maybe you want to actually connect deeper and like form an emotional connection. Maybe you want to explore and release some energy that you feel like has been really heavy on you, right? So there's all this intention really changes the experience. But the more you can be honest with yourself on what you want, that will like prepare you for success in the bedroom, let's say, right? So in
Yeah,
my personal experience, I was always, wanting this love. So I thought that if I had sex with someone, then I would receive love, right? And instead of me truly being really seeing the sexual experience as purely for the experience itself, not to
yeah,
get something, right? I think that's a huge thing that I've noticed is things that maybe my ego wanted versus my soul self. And yeah, sometimes I had to be honest with myself, like, why am I doing this? What is it that I really want? And are there healthier ways of being able to find someone who
yeah,
meets me on the same page, right? So,
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, it's so difficult to tell or to like help a person to be honest with themselves if they can't even be honest. What's the first step to even realize that you got to be honest with yourself?
Yeah. So the first step I would say when you become aware that there's a pattern, right? For example, you keep attracting the same partner but different body, right? So
Yeah.
you start to notice like, okay, I keep being put into this experience. At the end of the day, there is a common denominator, which is usually you, right? So it is so subconscious, I would say, because even in my journey and most people that I work with, it is so subconscious. You have no idea what's there until you really take the time or at least work with someone to maybe guide you in the beginning until you build up the muscle of self awareness and intuition.
Yes.
So, for sure, it's like notice that there's a pattern. And if you're ready to shift a pattern, there's so many tools out there, right? So whether you want to work with a coach or you want to do this type of breath work or this type of workshop, like there are so many tools out there. But first, you do have to be honest with yourself and almost like take a look in the mirror, like, okay, what keeps happening in my life and what do I really want? And where's the disconnect? What do I need to bridge to make things, more aligned?
Yeah. And what are the potential consequences of how you said from your personal story where you're always looking to fill that void with external
Mm,
things because you feel empty? So
yeah.
we go and find like the meaning and in this love that we think that we're gonna receive, but in
Yeah.
reality it's from the inside. What are the consequences of these behaviors?
Yeah. So I would say oftentimes, like the biggest consequence is like you start to realize that no experience, no person is ever going to fulfill you. That it's like it's always the seeking of more and more and more, but something is missing and it's never enough. So
Yeah.
ultimately, it's almost like your body starts to build resentment towards you. Like your mind starts to like, you start to get more and more confused because there's this like lack of trust with your own, desires and your own needs because of something external, right? And I would say that's the biggest, like, you mean you can be in your patterns as long as you want, like,
Yeah.
until unfortunately, a lot of people have to go through their suffering and breaking point to make a shift, right? I often say, well, what if you don't need to get to that stage, right? Like, I really went pretty low in the sense of like, was just so unhappy, was like having my mental breakdowns, like not understanding. But I also was very hard on myself. Like I was the type of person, like just as hard as I went into work and everything, I mean, that energy was still playing against me too. So it's like the more that we can see, like there is a loving way for growth, for expansion, that this doesn't have to be work always. Like it can be fun, it can be playful. Like it is so magical, but it does require like stepping into the unknown and making fear your friend, as I like to say, right? So there's a
Yeah,
little bit of that journey, but like one thing that's for sure is you're never alone. You always have people that you can find. It's just like it is taking the action and being vulnerable, right? And being like, hey, I want to make a change. And like, universe, like, show me.
exactly. And had you ever thought about having this like educating yourself on sex before you realized all these things, or you were like on another path in life and then you shifted because of all
Mm.
this that
So
you went through?
yeah, so I think I always wanted to be a relationship expert, but I was like, I've never even been in a relationship longer than 3 months. Like, who am I to speak on this subject, right?
Yeah,
But actually, like, what I learned is that this is something that I was passionate about, and it's I had this, like, deep knowing that I wanted this cosmic love. I wanted this soulmate connection, this level of love and self-love that, like, I knew the bathtub wouldn't give me. To be honest, I was even triggered when someone would be like, "You just have to love yourself, and then, like, your partner will come." Like, to be
yeah,
honest, partly, I'm like, "That's a bunch of bullshit." I know plenty of people that don't love themselves and they're in a relationship, right? So it's
it's
like, but
thousands.
the level of relationship that I was seeking and, like, the consciousness that I wanted to bring in, because I knew that there was something possible. Like, I had some, like, examples of what could be, but I was like, "There isn't enough." Like, I want to be also the example for others that you can have a safe relationship. You can have a relationship that, is intimate, that does talk about their desires, that at the end of the day, knowing that like you're on your own evolution just as much as the relationship is. And the more that we can be like, hey, I love you for you and I want to grow with you. What that looks like, that's for us to decide. But yeah, I definitely I saw a lot of codependency in my own personal life as well as like amongst a lot of relationships that I was seeing. And I was like, no, like there's got to be another way of relationship.
Yeah, exactly. It is. And can you elaborate, besides your technique and this like workshop you do once a month, what other
Yeah.
ways to help individuals connect with their inner self and use sex as an empowerment instead of, I mean, to fill the void?
Totally, yes. So I'm a big advocate for self pleasure, right? So the more that we can really self pleasure in an intentional way, like there is like your body is always talking to you. And the more that you can really get in touch with like, what does your body need right now? And like self pleasure could look like you just laying in bed and just like brushing your arm.
Exactly.
This is just you allocating time that, yeah, it doesn't mean that you always need to get to the orgasm, that you always need to get some result from your body. Sometimes your body just needs some time to breathe, to really just make
Mm,
a few minutes to just kind of connect back to you. So it's like the first step is like start listening to your body, right? And the more that you can listen to your body, it's going to tell you. It's going to tell you, when it's upset. It's going to tell you
yeah.
why it's not working, what it needs to be safe. So it is a beautiful like self exploration that, I wish I had when I was younger, but now I'm happy that I found it and I want to share with others for sure.
What also strategies do you use with your clients to like to guide them towards healthier and more fulfilling sexual experiences?
Totally. Yeah. Ooh, so yeah, this could go in a lot of directions, but so, a beautiful exercise that I love doing with my couples is this communication exercise. And it is called on one hand, you talk about your desires. The second, you talk about your fears. And the third is you say what you love about your partner. And if you think about it, it's like a 3-minute exercise where one person is just expressing and the other is listening.
Yeah.
So it's a time for not to go into like, discussion or argument. It's simply a way for you to really open up, knowing that that person is just going to like be there and hold space. So even like this practice of just allowing ourselves to express is often through that expression that we get to understand, what do we really need, more of? What what is really calling to us and how can we be more present with ourselves within the relationship and outside of the relationship as well?
Yeah, that's so important. Even to be heard.
And to be heard,
To
yes.
to feel like it's so important. Just sometimes I even need to like express myself with my partner, but no matter the response, I just need to vomit all that I have inside.
Yeah.
It's yeah, so important. And what resources do you recommend for the people that want to begin the journey of connecting themselves and using sex as an empowering way? To people that were never connected or feel
Yeah.
afraid.
Yeah. So really, like I always say, the first step is being able to just do genital breathing. Okay. So it sounds
How i-
crazy.
how is how is that?
Yeah. So literally it'd be you either sitting or laying down and breathing as if like your genitals were breathing. So it's really just like, and the slower the breath, the better. But by breathing into specific areas of your body, you're bringing attention to them and you're noticing.
Got it.
Do I feel numbness here? Do I feel connection here? Do I feel tingling here? Right. And like all sensations or lack of are welcome. There's nothing wrong to be feeling numb or disconnected. The huge part is like having the awareness. And once we have that awareness, we can be like, okay, I'm a little disconnected today in this area. Like, what can I do to really take some time for myself and reconnect? So,
Exactly.
yeah, it's definitely the body meditation that helps us become more sensitive to our own energy, our body, and even honestly, literally, it's just like you taking the time to sit with your body and see, like, oh, even something like, okay, I feel soreness on my left shoulder. Just being aware that it's there doesn't mean you have to do something right away about it. But the more we can be present with our body, that's going to be the first step in being like, okay,
How do you usually work with couples or singles? It's like a group class all in the same space or one on one.
yeah, so I work one on one with men or women. Specifically, right now, my focus has been helping women who struggle with orgasm and just feeling pleasure overall. So I do a blend of this tantric method as well as theta healing. So a lot of belief system reprogramming as well as the somatic experiencing. And then with my couples, I do date night sessions where you get to learn tantric techniques, different communication, breathing exercises, and everything is around building intimacy and really building the connection from, you can call it a more spiritual, sensual way. So you're
Yeah.
bringing intention into the experience, you're bringing a sacredness to it. And really, it changes your whole experience of sex because even just like setting up your ritual space, right? Or, being like, let's just breathe a little bit before we get into things. Like, holy crap. If I would tell any couple anything and just like, take some time to just breathe into your heart, do some eye gazing before going into the experience. It'll help you feel so much more connected to your own body, to each other, and help you feel more at ease.
So, what are your five non negotiables
Mm.
to be in a relationship, in a healthy relationship, sexually, emotionally, and in
Mm.
every aspect, in your opinion?
Okay. 5. Let's see. Okay. So first thing is for sure, the focus is on self-growth, self-evolution, right? So there's that awareness piece, right? Number 2 would be, yes, I value, you have to see that sex is something that is more than just a physical act. There
Yeah.
it is. Maybe if you haven't experienced it, you know that there's a possibility that it can get to this like sacred spiritual level. Number 3 would be, like, the body is sacred, for sure. The body is, like, I don't even wanna say the cliche form of the body is a temple, but the body is so freaking magical, like, it is so much knowledge. Your body literally is, like, we don't even know. Like, even as much as I teach this, right now, I feel like humanity's just, like, scratching the surface of how powerful our body and our mind is too.
Yeah, no, humanity is totally disconnected from our
Yeah.
bodies in
Dude,
every
our body,
sense.
Yeah, it's insane. Our body can source this energy and create energy on its own, and it's wild.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4 is communication, for sure. Being able to communicate, and it's like the truth that could hurt me. Like, I wanna know the truth, and that's something that I live by, and it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if that hurts. Like, I want to know, and this is something that is for sure non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
And number 5, play. For sure,
Have
playfulness.
fun.
It's like having fun, being curious, playful, like that is, I think, the point of life in general, but it's through that that you get to create. You get to create together. It is pure magic. Yeah.
What is your preference or like your client mostly what do they practice? Monogamous or non-monogamous relationships? What are you seeing more these
Mm.
days?
Oh, okay. So
And
I would
what's
say,
your opinion on this?
yeah. So I've worked with all different types of relationships. I would say primarily, no. I mean, they're like right now, it's the full spectrum. But for me, what I always say is there is always a way of more of a conscious way of poly, open, and also there's like so many different types. So that is
Yeah.
like your journey of exploration of what works for you. But what I can say is oftentimes we think that more partners equal more love. But really, sometimes we're afraid to go deep enough with one partner. So I always say master your first relationship before you
Yeah.
begin new relationships, right? Like
Yeah.
that is for me like my biggest advice. But also explore like, and what I would say is sometimes the relationship may start out as monogamous, but then you want to open it up. And it's perfectly okay that there are periods where it's more open, less open. There's a full spectrum of it. And I truly do believe that it is you and your partner's co creation of what truth is for you and your
Yeah.
relationship. So, like,
Exactly.
there's no right or wrong, to be honest, with all of my teachings and the way that I was trained. Like, it is really what is true for you. And if things are, and don't be afraid that if you open it up and you realize, holy shit, I don't like this, you need to communicate that. Like, for
Exactly.
all the relationships, especially if you're in like poly open, you need to extra communicate because you're dealing with so many emotions, so much self exploration that requires a lot of trust and a lot of expression.
And personally, I practice ethically non-monogamous
Yeah.
relationship. So,
Yes.
in my personal opinion, when someone comes and they're like, "Oh, I'm like with my boyfriend and we're not having the same sex as before," like I'm like, "Yeah, because you should have sex with other people. That makes your relationship better." That's me, my opinion. But what are other ways? Because this is very common in relationships. So,
Totally.
what are other ways that people can bring the spark back to the relationship if it's
Yeah.
off?
So totally. I mean, honestly, I'm gonna vouch for Tantra because Tantra is literally what really gets you to the next level of sex, the experience, how you view it, how you share it. Like, you can literally have energetic pleasure that is a different flavor from each chakra. So, like, a heart orgasm is going to feel way different than a third eye orgasm. Okay. And it's so crazy because, like, each experience is so different, and everything is ultimately like leading you to your greatest self love, deepest self knowing. And just as much as like you are having a shared experience with your partner, you are definitely on your own journey during like these sexual experiences as well. So
Yeah.
there's literally so much, and intention is everything. So they say like an intention to be sexually liberated is going to be a different experience than an intention to open your heart.
And how many orgasms can we have and in which parts of the body?
Oh, I mean, some say it's like there's 7. I on a physical and anatomical way, I really don't quote me on this, but I almost feel like it's limitless because when you tap into energetic pleasure, it
Yeah.
is literally, as I mentioned, your body is so turned on. A brush of an arm could send you to like crazy amounts of bliss, of pleasure, of visions. It's so magical once you start to play into this like almost like, yeah, spiritual cosmic sensuality because you open up your body to new ways of expression, new ways of exploration. It's, yeah, but like you can say that it's like the clitoral, the G spot, the A spot, the cervical. But to be honest, for me, it's like way beyond that because like anything, like you can, I'm even on this point of like, you could actually have no touch orgasms. If you know
Wow,
how
that's
to move your
incredible.
body, there's like nipple orgasm. It's crazy. And but main thing is like
Yeah,
you exploring your body and oftentimes they say the mind is also very connected to the orgasm and the orgasmic state, but there's a way of allowing your body to fully guide you in experience. And that is like such a beautiful, it's like such a surrendered, um, it's such a surrender that even I am still working towards. Like I'm working towards this level of surrender that literally my body is just naturally like, like
yeah.
doing things. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, have you ever felt scared of being so vulnerable or like in that extreme letting go? You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yes. So, I mean, this light didn't really help. It's my pink light. Okay.
I love it.
Sure. So, yes, I mean, I think it's definitely a journey. I think what I've realized is, of course, the fear of vulnerability, the fear and is always going to come up, but it's like how you view it, right? Do you view it as something that's going to hold you back, or do you view it as something that's actually pushing you to your greatest love, your deepest knowing, right? So oftentimes what I find is even I surprise myself that each year it's like the more shame I release, the more belief systems that I reprogram, the more I open my heart, I enter new states of pleasure, of vulnerability, of being to show myself to the world like I've never done before, right? Because even for me, this work is not just work, like it is my life's work. I'm a firm believer like I need to be a living example of the work that I teach because it's so, personal, right?
Exactly.
And yeah, don't get me wrong, I get scared too. Oh my gosh, I have to like, I'm dating someone, I have to speak to them. Of course, I'm going to sometimes feel like, okay, my throat may get a little constricted, but I know I have the tools that I can, explore further and go deeper. And that like I know how to really make myself feel safe. That no matter what experience happens, I have my back 100, 1000%. That like
I love that.
I may feel the emotions and sure it's gonna suck, it may hurt, but I'm always gonna come back to me. And now I've reached a level of self-love that I'm like full trust. No matter what happens, like I'm there for me. I'm not self-abandoning like I used to.
I love that having your own back, that's so important. I
Yeah.
like
I
that.
mean, so don't get me wrong, it was a journey. Like it's still a journey.
Yeah,
But like me compared to 3 years ago, me is a whole new person thanks
yeah.
to all of these tools. Yeah.
And so, Olivia,
Yes.
finally, what advice would you
Mhm.
offer to our listeners who may be struggling with issues related to sex, self worth, emotional voids?
Yeah.
Like, how can they start like their own journey towards a more empowered and connected sexual life with
Yes.
themselves or partners?
Yes, totally. Okay. So let me see what would be the best for the listeners. So it's almost like if you have a nudge that's like almost like whispering, it's whispering that like it has to be different. There has to be another way. Listen to it. Listen to what that nudge is saying. Don't listen to what people are saying or what people have told you, or even sometimes from your own experience, you could be like, well, I've never orgasmed, so I don't think it's possible. Like, have the awareness that this is maybe a belief, that this is a limiting belief that's keeping you small. And that if someone else was able to get to that level, you are too. And don't get me wrong, you may be triggered that someone is experiencing things and you're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. You may start to go into these excuses or what the mind is creating. But if some part of you is really knows deep down there is another way, you just don't know how, that is the first step. And that you'll start to find, people that you resonate with. You'll start to find people that are on similar journeys, but it does take a level of saying yes to you.
I love that. So
Yeah.
important. Thank you for sharing all these incredible
Yeah.
insights. So helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much. And it was a pleasure having this conversation.
Yes. Thank you. I love the podcast idea. It's been a pleasure.